These are the top 10 films of 1940. The year 1940, not the decade. When I say top 10, I mean my personal favourite films. This is a very American heavy list, and that's because the rest of the world was rather busy at the time. In at number 10, The Letter. This melodramatic noir stars the marvellous Bette Davis. In the brilliant opening shot, she shoots dead a man outside her house in British Malaya. We then follow her explanation, the investigation, and the court case into the murder. It seems like a simple case of self-defense, but when a letter is brought to her lawyer, the plot thickens. The real joy in this film is Davis. She's brilliant at being simultaneously vulnerable and deadly. It's based on a play, and does have that problem many film adaptations of theatre productions have, where it's mostly set in a few rooms. It would have been amazing to see Singapore and Malaysia at that time, but I guess that wasn't on the cards in 1940. In at number 9, Fantasia. If your child likes classical music, then they'll love this. One of Disney's stranger early animated features, featuring music by kids' favourite Bach, Tchaikovsky, Stravinsky and Beethoven. And for adults, you've got Mickey Mouse, Cupids and dancing elephants. It was an expensive film to make, and due to the cost of installing Fantasound in the cinemas playing it, and the fact that they couldn't release it in Europe, because, well, you know why, meant the film was initially a financial flop, and was a huge loss for Disney. But don't worry, they're doing fine now and own everything. In at number 8, The Shop Around the Corner. This is a really charming romantic film from Ernst Lubitsch. Yet again, this is a film based on a play, and so it's set in only a few rooms, but the cast carry you through, and it still manages to feel cinematic. It's set in a shop in Budapest, before the war of course. We follow the workers and owner of the store. The top seller is played by the ever-charming James Stewart. He gets into conflict with our newest worker, played by Margaret Sullivan. They can't stand each other, but little do they know that they're actually in love. Both are writing anonymous love letters to the other. It's a funny film with wonderful characters and a real sense of joy at its heart. It was basically remade in 1998 with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan conversing over the internet and You've Got Mail. It's my favourite comedy of the year. Not You've Got Mail, The Shop Around the Corner. It's often overlooked, with His Girl Friday and Philadelphia Story getting more attention. I think it's a shame, as Ernst Lubitsch had such a human touch to his comedies, which makes them absolutely lovable. In at number 7, Night Train to Munich. This is a top-notch British spy thriller. Many people see it as a Lady Vanishes rip-off, and in many ways they're right. It's a train film set in Europe, set just before the outbreak of World War II. They both star Margaret Lockwood. The cricket-loving characters, Charters and Caldecott, appear in this as well, and it's full of twists and turns. So yeah, it is a rip-off of The Lady Vanishes, but that doesn't stop it from being tremendous fun. This may not have Hitchcock, but it's got Carol Reed as the director. He would go on to make Odd Man Out and The Third Man, and here he does a great job of keeping the audience on the edge of their seats. The story follows the daughter of a Czech scientist who is wanted by both the British and the Nazis. Her and her father are smuggled back and forth across Europe and are fooled and seduced by double agents on both sides. It's so much fun, and Charters and Caldecott are always funny.
A copy of Mein Kampf. Occurred to me it might shed a spot of light on all this. How do you do? Never read it.
Never had the time.
I understand they give a copy to all the bridal couples over here.
Well, I don't think it's that sort of book, old man.
In at number 6, The Long Voyage Home. John Ford is mostly known for his desert-set westerns, but here we're out to sea for this World War II naval drama. It takes place on a British tramp steamer. In command are stiff, upper-lipped, emotionally repressed Brits, while the crew is made up of hard-drinking, fighting, lovable Irishmen, Scandinavians, and one stiff, upper-lipped, emotionally repressed Brit, who, of course, the others don't trust. They are tasked with transporting explosives from America to England. It's not smooth sailing across the Atlantic. It's, dangerous. The cast is brilliant. By far the strangest casting is seeing John Wayne playing a Swedish sailor. He's really likeable in it, but he doesn't quite pull off the accent.
You come right home, and I write back always. I come soon, and I mean all time to go at end of voyage, but I come ashore, I take one drink, I take 2 drinks, I ship away for another voyage.
It's an episodic film, but this works, as it's really about these men who go from place to place, one thing after another. It may be called The Long Voyage Home, but these men don't have one and will likely die at sea. Greg Toland's cinematography is stunning. It's so good that John Ford shared the title card with Toland. It's dark and noirish, and was one of the main influences for the visual style of Citizen Kane. Orson Welles would bring on Toland as cinematographer and also share a title card with him. The Long Voyage Home is one of John Ford's lesser-known classics, and that's a real shame. He was so much more than just a great Western director. In at number 5, The Thief of Baghdad, one of the great British adventure films. It's a Technicolor marvel. Wonderful effects, fantastic characters, and it has a real sense of wonder. It's remarkable that it's as good as it is. It had a troubled production and was eventually directed by 6 different directors. The first wasn't cutting the mustard, so the great Michael Powell was brought on. Unfortunately, he was removed as he was given the task of making propaganda films for the government. Due to bombing and, World War II, production moved to the States and more directors were brought in. The move to America did allow them to film in excellent locations such as the Grand Canyon. The location photography, along with the amazing sets, do give this film an epic quality. The cast is great, but especially good is the Indian actor Sabu. He's got so much life and energy and is instantly likeable. He has a physicality about him and steals the picture from the main hero John Justin, who's fine in it but doesn't have quite the charisma of Sabu. Sabu would later join the war effort as a tail gunner flying over the battlefields of the Pacific, even being awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross for bravery.
And all in our kingdom is yours, except that carpet.
The Thief of Baghdad was a very influential movie, and its influence can be seen in Disney's Aladdin. They basically lift Jafar and the toy-loving Sultan straight from the film. Although I gotta say, the genie in this is nothing like Robin Williams. In at number 4, Rebecca. Alfred Hitchcock's first American film is very British. Based on Daphne du Maurier's novel, this psychological romantic thriller is top-notch Hitchcock. Joan Fontaine stars as a young woman who falls madly in love with an aristocrat in the south of France. They have a whirlwind romance and quickly marry. Things take a dark turn when they return to England. They move into his seaside mansion, Mandalay. Even though his previous wife, Rebecca, died in a boating accident, her presence fills the estate. It's not a ghost film, but it's almost as if she haunts the property. All the staff, in particular the housekeeper, Mrs. Danvers, are infatuated with the late Rebecca. The new wife can't live up to her, and struggles to fit in. Eventually, more is revealed, and the film becomes more of a thriller, but it's the first 2/3 that I really love. It looks stunning, and is full of inventive touches. Laurence Olivier is very good as the slightly detached millionaire. But it is Joan Fontaine as the lead that makes this film an absolute classic. She's tremendous in it. In the scenes set in France, you fall in love with her just as Olivier does. And then it's her awkwardness and fear in Mandalay that make her totally relatable. She can't do anything right. She's uncomfortable, unsure, and totally lost. Fontaine does this all perfectly and delivers one of the best performances of the 1940s. In at number 3, The Great Dictator. Charlie Chaplin and Adolf Hitler don't have a lot in common, well, except for the moustache. In The Great Dictator, the great comedian takes on pure evil. His film ridicules the fascist bastard, but is also a plea to the people of the world to be kinder to each other. It's set in the fictional European country of Tomania. It's obvious who Chaplin is talking about. He ridicules his hateful speeches.
Ein Tomania bis ein Strapf, ein der Blitzen sagt der Knütz, ich kleiner Strapf mit der
And he deals with the plight of Jewish people across Europe. In the film, he plays both the Hitler-inspired Heinkel and a Jewish barber. Apparently, Hitler was screened the film privately in Berlin and watched it alone twice. Who knows what he thought of it? I can't imagine he liked it.
Here are the notes for your speech.
Thank you.
Ist das Blitz? Stutzen Sie, Quack!
It's a very, very funny film. It's also a very touching and upsetting one. Even more upsetting with hindsight, as we now know what was happening and was going to happen to the Jewish people of Europe. Chaplin has said that if he had known the true horrors, he wouldn't have made the film. I understand this, but I disagree with Chaplin, for humour is one of the great defences we have against evil. Laughing through bad situations is necessary for survival and mental health. And laughing at the villains of the world is a brilliant way to belittle them. His impassioned speech at the end cements this film as one of the greatest comedies of all time.
Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
In at number 2, Pinocchio. Another financial flop for Disney. This again was mostly due to that big old conflict going on the other side of the world. This is my favourite Disney cartoon, mainly because it's so damn twisted. Usually Disney takes an old classic children's tale and make them slightly more commercial. But not here. We're going to see runaway children being brutally transformed into donkeys forever. You know, they're not going to turn into kids again. This is it. They're now donkeys. We get Slave Master Stromboli, who, aside from Pinocchio escaping, he's still out there. You know, he's still out there capturing little wooden boys and putting them in cages. Our two main characters are eaten alive, and there's a host of other strange and odd sequences and images. The animation is gorgeous, and the music is terrific. In particular, When You Wish Upon a Star. It's a great Disney film, a great animated film, and just a great motion picture. A timeless, beautiful classic. And in at number 1, The Grapes of Wrath. Another John Ford classic in 1940. Based on John Steinbeck's brilliant novel, we follow the plight of migrant workers during the Great Depression. The film stars Henry Fonda as a man recently released from prison. He returns to his family's farm to find it abandoned. In his absence, rich deed holders have removed all the farmers from their land. He reunites with his family and they decide to make the long journey across America from Oklahoma to California, where there is the promise of work. And not all of them make the arduous journey. Once there, things get no better. They find thousands of unemployed people starving. The farmers are abused and cattled by the police, and because they are desperate, they're used for cheap labour, which is work they just can't turn down. It's a film about injustice, inequality and survival. These people are forced from their homes and go in search of a better life. When they get to this promised land, they are treated like subhuman criminals. And not much has changed even now. Economic migrants all around the world are still treated this way. One of the best characters in the novel and the film is Jim Casey, a former preacher who has lost his faith and seemingly a bit of his sanity. As the film progresses, he finds new purpose and a drive to unionize and help the working man. Henry Fonda is great in the lead. He was a man and an actor with a real passion for justice. This might have stemmed from his experiences as a child. As a young boy, he witnessed the lynching of Will Brown in the Omaha race riots of 1919. It filled him with fury, and he fought injustice for the rest of his life. Before America was even involved in World War II, he was raising money to help fund the defence of Britain. And once the US got involved, he immediately joined the Navy. Anyway, enough about his life. His performance in The Grapes of Wrath is one of his best. One of the other stars of the film is yet again cinematographer Greg Toland. My lord, he knows how to shoot a film. It's a stunning looking picture. Toland died 4 years later of coronary thrombosis at the age of only 44. One can only imagine the work he would have continued to do, but his legacy lives on as one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. Right, so counting down my top 10. In at number 10, The Letter. In at number 9, Fantasia. In at number 8, The Shop Around the Corner. In at number 7, Night Train to Munich. In a number 6, The Long Voyage Home. In a number 5, The Thief of Baghdad. In a number 4, Rebecca. In a number 3, The Great Dictator. In a number 2, Pinocchio. And in a number 1, The Grapes of Wrath. Well, those are my top 10 films of 1940. I've probably missed out loads of great films. So what are your top 10 films of the year 1940? Cheers.